All right, today is Amaro making day. Decided gonna make some Amaro, and I figured I'd document the process just for myself and anybody else who might ever see this. I've been making Amaro for over a year and a half now. Found a lot of things that have worked and haven't worked, and tips and tricks and things that have made my life easier. So just wanted to kind of share those here. Today I'm going to be making a licorice Amaro, a recipe that I've kind of made up myself. So I've got my recipe written down and I've grabbed all my ingredients that I need for it. Got a whole box and lots of different herbs and roots and spices and flowers and everything. So grabbed what I need for today. These come from all over the place. Local food stores, health food stores, grocery stores, just that have kind of more basic standard stuff. Some things from Amazon, a lot of my stuff from Monterey Bay. They have a huge selection of really good prices of roots and herbs and spices that are hard to find elsewhere. And then, even just my own dried orange peels from oranges that I purchased, and then just peeled them and dried it. I get other stuff from Star West Botanicals and Mountain Rose Herbs, like lots of places to source a lot of this stuff. So basically my process is I am going to weigh out everything using a super sensitive, really nice digital scale. I got this off of Amazon. It was pretty cheap, maybe 15, 20 bucks or so. And weigh it all out, throw it in here to a mortar. I have a pestle, but I won't be using that. I used to kind of grind up my stuff a little bit, but I found that it just makes it harder to filter. You get a lot more sediment, and I don't have a nice filtering setup, so it's just not worth it. And then when you're extracting with Everclear, it's 190 proof. It's going to extract flavor really, really well, even if it's not crushed up. So that's one of the things that I've learned as I've done this multiple times. I haven't noticed any difference in flavor extraction at all. So yeah, I'll start measuring and weighing things out and come back. All right, got everything measured out here. A couple things. I don't crush up my herbs, like I said, but one thing that I will do is I will kind of break up the cinnamon so it's not like big old long sticks. Just break it into a few smaller pieces, and then with the cardamom pods, I will also just kind of, not like straight up crush, but kind of give it a little smack to kind of open it up. And not even all of them, just maybe one or two of them. Cardamom is strong, so I don't need to worry too much, but it kind of helps to get maybe those seeds exposed directly to the alcohol. So now I've got that all mixed up here. Now what I'll do is I'll spoon it out and put it into these cheesecloth bags. I got these off of Amazon. They're really nice, keeping everything contained, and then it also helps so that you don't have as many problems with powders and little bits that you have to filter out. These still allow, obviously, the Everclear to get in there and do its extraction, but it does keep your final liquid a lot cleaner, a lot easier to filter, especially if you're just trying to do it through a coffee filter. Even like a fine powder is gonna gunk it up real quick. So yeah, just spoon it into a couple bags, tie these bags closed, and then throw that into a mason jar and add the Everclear. So we'll come back. Okay, so here I am, still adding some alcohol. Just wanted to stop real quick in the middle of it, show you. This has been sitting here for like a minute and it's already starting to change color. But basically, yeah, I'm gonna keep adding my alcohol. And then once I'm all done, I do like to put a piece of wax paper down and then put on my lid my ring just to make sure that there's no contact of alcohol with like the metal of the ring or something. And then wait for 2 weeks. That just sits. I might give it a shake once a day or every other day or so. But that's it. And then it's just waiting. I'll come back in 2 weeks. All right. So this has now been macerating for 2 weeks. You can see color change in there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the alcohol and transfer it into this new jar. I'll leave the cheesecloth bags in this jar. So it's just going to be alcohol over there, and just need to get it separated. And then back there I've got some water that's getting ready to boil. Just before boiling, not quite totally boiling, I'll pull it off, and I'm going to add about 666 grams of water, or 666 mil of water, to this larger jar here with the roots and herbs in their cheesecloth bag, and we'll let that macerate for a couple of days. I like to use hot water because that heat will help to extract some extra flavor compounds that cold water might not be able to get exactly. After it cools for a couple of hours, I'm actually going to also throw in this orange peel here. I don't like to add the orange peel with the hot water because it just pulls out extra, while it might pull out extra oils and things, it also will pull out extra pectin and things that could potentially cause more haziness than is worth. So yeah, that's the next steps. Just transferring alcohol to this other jar, getting everything in there hot and macerated for, again, about 2-3 days, and then I'll come back. A couple of things that I just remembered I wanted to mention. So I said I needed like 666 grams of water here. What I've actually done is I poured out 725. I did a little bit more. There's always going to be some absorption here with the roots and barks that are going to absorb water, and you won't ever be able to get that back. So if you do exactly, what your final amount's going to be, you're going to be a little bit short. So I always do a little bit more just because I know that there's going to be some that's going to be lost, and that's fine. And you just plan for it ahead of time. You don't want to do like too much, otherwise you're diluting this tea down to, not be very flavorful. So you don't go like way overboard, but give yourself a little bit of leeway. And then also, now that I've got that poured off, you can see how completely clear that is when you're extracting with 96%. Like, it's just a really, really clear liquid. When you use those tea bags, the cheesecloth tea bags, you don't get any powders or anything that escapes those. So it makes it very easy to filter and a nice, easy way to handle it. So yeah, just a couple extra thoughts. I'm gonna take this off, cap it off, again, give it a couple hours, and then throw in my orange peel. All right, so it's been 3 days. My tea has been in there steeping. I've got the orange peels in there, and it's ready to strain. What I'm gonna do first is pour out all the liquid out of here and squeeze out the bags and try to get as much liquid out of those as I can. When you extract with Everclear, you don't have to really squeeze the bags at all, because Everclear, it's just extracting. It's just pulling out flavors. The roots and barks and herbs and everything don't really absorb any sort of liquid. So if you try to squeeze it out, it's still very, very dry. But it's not true when you're doing it with water. When you're doing it with water, they are actually absorbing the liquid, and they will be soft, and you can get a lot of flavor out of them if you just give them a good squeeze. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna get it all into this container, and then once I'm done with that, I'll filter it back into a jar got these filters. These are handy. I've started just using these just a couple of times now, and I really like them. It's a lot easier and nicer than a coffee filter. There's a 200 mesh, like 74 micron, and then a 37 micron 400 mesh version, just to kind of get out any particulates that are in there. So I'll pour off the liquid into here and then filter it back into this container. And then once that's all done, I can combine these two. So I'll come back when I've done that. All right, so I'm filtering now. I'm using the 400 mesh 37 micron filter. The reason I like these so much more than a coffee filter is they are a lot easier to clean out. Once this thing starts getting clogged, it's easy enough to just rinse it out in the sink, and you've got a nice clean filter ready to go really quickly instead of having to deal with waiting for all of the liquid to get out of the coffee filter. The coffee filter is a lot more fine filtering than this is, which means it clogs up faster. So that's good because it gives you a better finished product perhaps, but it's much more annoying than this. So just go ahead and filter these. With this, I probably only have to rinse this out once or twice because there's still not that much particles that are going to clog up my filter. This is not very clean looking, but that's not because of necessarily a bunch of sediment or anything in there. It's just these particular ingredients, a lot of licorice root and a lot of star anise and some other things that just cause cloudiness regardless of how much particulates in the liquid. So I'll keep going. All right, got it all filtered. Here's the last look of kind of what's left over in there. Really not so much. That's just because, using those cheesecloth bags really keeps most of it in, and this is just probably a lot of this came out when I was squeezing anyway. So if I didn't squeeze, there'd be even less than that. But yeah, this is the last batch, and that's the last little gunk. So what I'm gonna do now is just gonna pour this off into here. And then I'm gonna weigh this out. Make sure how many grams. Gonna add this back in. I'm just curious what my final amount was. I started with 725 grams of water when I started that tea. I was hoping to end with about 666. I'm a little bit short. 645 grams of tea. So it's fine. I can add a little bit more water just to get to my desired amount. So I guess next time just do more than 725, and maybe if I'd done 750 from the get-go, I'd be okay now, and I wouldn't have to add any extra water to make up that difference. But it's no big deal at all. 18 grams or whatever of water is not going to make any difference in the end. So all right, next steps are going to be to combine these two liquids to form the final bit, but I'm going to save that for tomorrow. All right, I'm back. It's a new day. This is all stuff that I could have done yesterday, but it was getting late and just wanted to give it a day. All right, so what I'm doing here real quick, I actually was curious. I wanted to weigh out how much of my 95% alcohol was left after I did the 2-week maceration. I actually lost a bit more than I expected. I started with 400 grams, and in the end I ended up with 355 grams of finished. I lost probably a little bit pouring stuff back and forth, and obviously things getting absorbed, the roots and herbs absorbing some of that alcohol. Not a big deal. I'm not shooting for like one specific ABV, final ABV anyway, so it's not a huge deal. I am curious about my ABV in the end, so I'm going to be checking this. So I've got some alcohol here. Again, this is around 95-ish%, 72 degrees Fahrenheit. And I've got a hydrometer here that's telling me we've got maybe 189 or so proof. With the temperature being at 72, probably need to drop like 5 degrees off of here, or five off of that. So instead of 189, I've got proof of 184, which gives me 92% ABV. And I've got 355 grams of that. I've got 643 grams of my tea here, and now it's just time to put them all together. So I switched bottles here so that I can have the final liquid in my half-gallon instead of trying to fit it all into a little quart. Wouldn't have enough space for that. So that's my tea over there. My alcohol here. Now this particular batch of Amaro is licorice, and it's got some star anise. And basically that means there's a ton of anethols in this. And with all of that anethol, that is going to make for a cloudy Amaro, no matter what I do. It's not going to be high enough proof to prevent louching. So this is going to louche for sure as I combine these two, and there's no way to avoid it. If this was not so heavy in anethols and just had a little bit, I would care more and I would try harder. But again, in this case, it's going to happen no matter what. The way that you can try to prevent louching is you always want to add your water to your alcohol, because until I hit a certain point, there's always going to be more alcohol in here, and it's only when the proof drops that you get that louching. So again, it's going to happen regardless. See, there it is already. There's no way to prevent it, so I'm not even trying to be careful. But again, if this wasn't like a licorice and star anise heavy Amaro to begin with, I would try harder to, pour more slowly, keep the proof at a certain point, and then I could avoid that louching, but there's no way. So there we go. I'll give this a little shake. You can kind of see a little bit of, the anethols in there, kind of separating out from that water and that alcohol because of the insolubility of it all. But I'm gonna basically at this point just gonna kind of let this rest for a day or two, give it a shake, and then after that it's time to give it a cold crash. So we'll come back in maybe a day or two. All right, quick little video here. It's been actually 6 days since I finished mixing my alcohol and water together. I planned on throwing this in the freezer after a couple days. Life got busy, didn't happen. I did shake it pretty consistently for 3 or 4 days, maybe go in there every 6 hours. It's just in the pantry, so anytime I happen to go in there, give it a little shake. Did that for about 4 days, but I haven't now shaken it since Thursday. Today's Saturday. You can see that there is stuff that's kind of settling here on the bottom. It's kind of harder to see it exactly, but yeah, there's a little bit of settlement, and that's gonna just speed up and be more pronounced after I throw this in the freezer. On Thursday, the last time I gave it a shake, I also just decided to check the alcohol content. According to the math that I did, when I checked how much ABV I had 355 grams of 92%, and after I added the water, math said I should have been around 41% ABV. My hydrometer said it was actually closer to 37, 38, so a little bit of a difference. Not sure if, it might have been some differences, and the hydrometer is not exact, and there could have been some evaporation here or there. Like, not a big deal. Again, it's just all mostly a curiosity thing. But yeah, gonna throw this in the freezer now, give it a couple days, come back, see how it looks. All right, here we are. It's been 2 weeks since I did my cold crash. I don't normally wait that long, but I wasn't in a super hurry this time for this particular batch. I've made this recipe before and loved it, and these next couple of bottles are gonna be Christmas gifts. So I'm not drinking it anyway, so I've had a little bit more patience than I normally do. So I decided to kind of just wait it out a little bit longer and see what would happen. So I did a cold crash for about 32 hours. Threw it in the freezer, in my deep freezer, the chest freezer, for 32 hours or so. Pulled it out, and it wasn't completely frozen, obviously, because it's got so much alcohol in it. But it was kind of slushy looking, a little bit almost solid state, but not there. I was able to stick my thermometer in there. It was minus 20 Fahrenheit. So really cold, but still not completely frozen. After pulling it out of the freezer, I left it just here on the counter for about a day, and really quickly it started to separate. And this is what happens when you do a cold crash. So you can see there's this top section here that's very, very clear. You can see my hand behind it, and then all this stuff down here at the bottom that collects. And when I first, after a day or two of it sitting on the counter, this layer of stuff, it was probably about up to here, like in between like the 500 and this, 750 here. So, maybe 700-ish milliliters of this was, this fluffy kind of stuff there. And as it sat over the next 2 weeks, it settled even further. Didn't settle that much. There's still a whole lot down here at the bottom, but I will have a whole bunch here that I can filter off. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to siphon this through this tube down to a jar down there. I'm going to siphon off this top clear stuff that won't need a whole lot of filtering. And then with this bottom stuff down here, this is what's really going to need to be filtered. So I'm going to throw it through a whole bunch of filters. Today is filtering day. It's the crappiest day. It's a long, tedious, boring day, but having done this cold crash will make this a lot easier than it would have otherwise been. So I'm going to throw it through first the 200 mesh, the 74 micron filter a couple of times, and then throw it through the 400 mesh, 37 micron a couple of times, and then probably through some coffee filters a couple of times. These are about 20 micron. So just slowly getting more and more of the sediment and stuff filtered out of it. It's going to take hours. It's going to be annoying and boring. So that's what's next. I'll come back when it's all done. All right, so really quickly just here, was able to siphon off about just over 500 mil. I've got about 500 mil of gunk there. You can, totally, again, see the difference. Like, it's very, very, very clear. So really happy with that. Just wish it was a bigger percentage, but when you're doing something with this much licorice root anethols, it's just not going to happen. So, all right, next I'm going to do, since that's just kind of gunk anyway, you can really see how kind of like, I don't know, fluffy that stuff is, but I'm going to throw this through my 200 mesh. It's kind of almost even like goopy. But that was probably too much. Should not have started with that much, but whatever. So now we sit, wait, watch for that to filter, wait for that to filter through, and then do it again a couple more times with this, and then slowly work my way down in microns and get a finer and finer filter. All right, back again. Filtered that much. Just needed to say, when filtering, even if it's with this 200 mesh or 74 micron, the whole benefit of these reusable ones is that you can just wash them out when they get dirty, so you don't have to sit forever. If you fill this thing to the top, it's just gonna take forever no matter what. So my last first demo was terrible. Really, we're talking like that much in there per time. That way you're filtering just a tiny bit at a time and you can wash it out. You're washing a ton, but it's gonna go way faster in the end if you're not having to wait for this clogged thing to filter a whole bunch of stuff every single time. So yeah, I poured all that back into here, rinsed it out, and now I'm starting over, and I'm just gonna do little bits at a time and going very slowly still. Change of plans. The 200 mesh was going too slow. This is definitely the thickest, most stuff, junk, whatever it is that I've ever had before, and it was goopy, and it was even on the 200 mesh, it was taking too long. So I am putting it through a cheesecloth first, and then I'll do my original plan of 200 mesh, 400 mesh coffee filters, because this is just too much. It was going to take forever. I mean, it's still going to take forever, but now it'll just take a little bit less time. But yeah, just having to change things on the fly. I don't know if it's because I cold crashed this recipe for the first time and it reacted differently than the others that I've cold crashed, or if it's more about the fact that I let it sit for 2 weeks, which I've never done when I've cold crashed in the past. So I don't know what is making the big difference here with this compared to other recipes, but I had more sediment on the bottom and it was of a different consistency that I've ever seen before. So I'm just gonna kind of have to improvise and figure out a new way to get this as clear as I can. I think the cheesecloth will be a good starting point, and then we'll see what we get in the end. All right, here we are. It has been 7.5 hours and I am done filtering. So it took a very long time, but here you can see the original stuff that I siphoned off the top. Very clear. Can kind of get maybe a good view of how clear it is. This other stuff, obviously not as clear. It's got way more stuff suspended in there, but compared to how it started, it's really good. So it took about an hour and a half to filter it twice through the 200 micron filter, and then the long one was surprisingly the 400 micron. That took about 4.5 hours, and then it took about an hour and a half to get it through twice through the coffee filter. So really surprised. I mean, part of that is because I only have one of the 400 micron filter funnels, whereas I have two of the 200, and I have as many coffee filters as I need, so I'm able to kind of double up and kind of do two batches of filtering at once. But interestingly, I decided to, since I've never done this, so I've never done a cold crash, and then studied this, so I was kind of curious. Checked the ABV of my stuff that I was able to siphon off the top, and it's an ABV of 37%. This stuff, with all of that stuff suspended in it, and the alcohol, I guess, floated up to the top here because this is much lower. It's about 29% ABV for that. So pretty interesting. I'm gonna mix them now, so it doesn't super make much of a difference. And I'm gonna test the ABV again of the combined liquid. But just really interesting to see how the cold crash and the separation really changed what the ABV of each part. So I've got about 477 grams, a little over 500 mil, and then this one is 411 grams, and you can see just under 500 mil. So combined I'll have about 1,000 mil, and then I add the sugar. Before I add the sugar, I will be checking the ABV, because once you add sugar, you can no longer trust your hydrometer. So yeah, next step's combining those. And then what I do like to do is, once I know the ABV, I can kind of convert that to determine what the ABW is, the alcohol by weight. Then I know exactly how many grams of ethanol is in my liquid, and then I can use that as I calculate backwards how much sugar I want to add. Since I can't use my hydrometer to determine the alcohol percentage after the sugar's added, I can just do math and figure it out using, if I know the alcohol by weight, I can determine, and I know the volume of my combined liquids, so I'll put it into, this, so I can check exactly how many mils I've got. I know the ABV, I can convert that to ABW. Once I know the ABW, I know exactly how many grams of ethanol it is versus water. And once I know that, then I can add my sugars and kind of have an estimate of my final ABV once everything's combined. So that's the next step. It's combining, so it's fun. Come back when it's all done. Okay, 9 weeks, and we are at a finished product. So here is my licorice root, Amaro, licorice spice. It's been about a week since I combined the sugar and the caramel, and it's gonna continue resting for a bit. This is actually, most of this batch is gonna be given for Christmas gifts, so won't be drinking it myself, but excited to give it away to people. And so it's still got a couple of months. It's only mid-September now, so a couple months before I'll be even giving it away. And that's just extra time for it to come together. But I've already tried it. Here it is. It is really nice color. The caramel color was a bit darker this go around than previous caramel that I've done in the past, so it's a bit darker of a color than usual. But I think it's really pretty. Gave it a nice kind of darker, more bitter sweetness. And then obviously there was the regular cane sugar, just regular granulated white sugar that I added. So there it is. Really, really happy with it. Really excited for other people to try it. Yeah, 9 weeks. It's a little longer than I usually take on a batch, but I just felt like spending the extra time doing a cold crash, doing some extra filtering, doing a lot of kind of extra stuff to make it a little bit better than usual. So there we go. Really happy. All done.